Hey, hey. Really the only thing that gon' be normal is distribution. Normal folks gon' infuse some. Optimize your lineups and you feed the rest, you mute them. Turning it up, these numbers are loud. Peeping this game from a nimbus is wild. Making it rain. While I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best rest till into the next world. Guess I got next still.
Hey y'all, we're getting into week 13. Tomorrow is Thursday night football. It's the Seahawks, it's the Cowboys. It's a great matchup. We said that last week though, and we got an injured Joe Burrow. T. Higgins was out. Mark Andrews was out. I'm hoping that this is a better Thursday night game. We are going to be missing Kenneth Walker for this game. So plan to start your Zach Charbonnets tomorrow and not as a flex play. Obviously, the move for Thursday nights is to move him into your RB1 or RB2 position. So that way you have more flexibility later on in the week. The reality is we're always dealing with these midweek questionables. And so, especially when you get to this point in the season where all the money is on the line, where all the stakes are high, you need, like, the pride is there, the money is there, all of that plays a factor into the heightened importance of the decision making you're going to be executing in your lineups. And so you do not want to leave some running back in your RB2 spot, right? Let's say Raheem Mostert, who's questionable, ends up being inactive. I'm not saying that he is, but I'm just using a hypothetical here. If he's inactive and you could have moved Zach Charbonnet into that spot, now you are only limited to running backs to fill in that spot. You want to be able to give yourself maximum flexibility. Same thing with your super flex position. So if you play in a super flex league, make sure that you are moving that quarterback, so either Dak Prescott or Geno Smith, into your quarterback one slot so that super flex is open just in case something bizarre happens. It's just good gameplay, and it's a good reminder as we get closer to the playoffs and into the playoffs that you need to be making these smart moves in your lineups. So today we're going to be doing some stardom, sit-em fantasy football advice, week 13. This is always a big hit. This is always an exciting episode where I just answer your start sit questions. Yesterday, I talked about playoff favorable matchups and players that you should either be targeting in trades or picking up off of waivers or considering starting if maybe you just have them on your bench. And so I encourage you to take a listen to yesterday's video podcast. And it was a great one. I went for about 45 minutes and then answered about 15-20 minutes of questions afterwards. So make sure you guys check that out. It's really great content. I talk about quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends that you could be considering for the rest of the season. There's a couple deep cuts in there as well. So make sure you guys are checking that out. I put that up yesterday. And then tomorrow on the Player Profiler channel for Thursday night, I do the Thursday night tailgate. So make sure you guys are checking that out, 7:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. And I answer start sit questions there for Thursday night games. And if you need to decide whether you're going to put, Zach Charbonnet or Javonte Williams into your starting lineup, we can talk about those two different players. I also have my rankings updated by about 7:30. I do a couple tweaks right after the podcast, but you can go to bestbellfantasy.com and go to rankings. And I just have my initial, just throw them out there rankings. So if I don't get to your question, or if you have more questions, you can go to bestbellfantasy.com and go to rankings. And I've got just an initial set of rankings. I'll be doing some updates tomorrow and some updates right before game time. So, and I keep that updated throughout the week. You'll be able to tell at the top of the website when was the last time that I updated it, so you can get the most accurate up-to-date rankings. Okay. I also have a show on Saturdays, The Dominator, on the Player Profiler channel, 9 p.m. Eastern with Billy Muzio. Billy and I are best friends in real life, but we're also studs in the rankings industry. Both Billy and I are in the top 45 of rankings this year. I'm at 31. Billy's in the 40s. We're both crushing it. Billy's had some really great weeks. And then this week finished 13th in kickers. Yeah, I'll take it. So it's really exciting to be doing all of that. Make sure you guys are checking out that on the Player Profiler channel. And then on Saturday as well, Jacob Fabian is going to be joining me, and we're going to be discussing a lot of things. I'm sure we're going to do some start sits. I'm sure we're going to do some playoff strategy, show as we get into it. Lots of people want to know, who am I going to start? What is the player outlook? What moves should I make? And Jake is going to have a lot of those insights as well on Saturday night on this channel. So you'll see a lot of me over the next few days. It's really exciting. I'm really stoked to be doing all the content, bringing you all of this important advice as we get closer and closer to the fantasy playoffs and throughout the playoffs. I will be there with you every step of the way. And before we get into questions, one last thing is that I want you to check out Did It. So if you guys haven't seen Did It, the first call is free. You download the app on iOS or Android, and you can share your screen. I encourage you, send me a message beforehand, and we can set up a chat. That way I can prepare for it. You can prepare for it. I can make sure you're not calling me while I am driving, right? One of my clients called me on Sunday while I was driving. I'm like, I'm going to give you the best that I can, the best advice I can while I'm driving. But yeah, if we can set that up, that's best for you and best for me, of course. But one of the things that I told this client is to start Rashee Rice over Demario Douglas. Rashee Rice ended up smashing as a top 10 wide receiver last week. Yes, Demario Douglas didn't let you down, but Rashee Rice gave you a smash week, 8 receptions, over 100 yards, and a touchdown. So make sure you guys are checking me out on Did It. The first call is free. And I give you some of the best advice in the industry. Make sure you guys are checking out the Did It app. All right, let's get into it. We got some questions today. Let's go serendipity trick shots. Oh, what's up? What's up to you, serendipity trick shots? Should I start JSN over Downs, Achane, Aaron Jones, or possibility of T. Higgins? Now, JSN has been playing a few more snaps as of late, but he hasn't had the big breakout game that we've been looking for, and we can't start him with confidence. So we're crossing JSN off this list. He's not a player that I'm excited about, putting into my starting lineup. He's not a player that I'm like, I need to find a way to get him in. No. Jackson Smith and Jigba is my 80 flex rank for right now. He's at 80. Downs for me is at 57. So clearly Downs over JSN in the flex rankings. And then Achane, I need more information, because right now Achane is my running back my flex 45 player, ahead of JSN, ahead of Downs. But if we get any inkling that Achane is going to be severely limited or is going to be out, obviously you're not going to be starting him. But if he is active and there's no rumblings about, he's going to get limited workload, limited touches, then you're starting him. You're starting Devon Achane in most scenarios this year, given these types of players. Now, let's compare that to Aaron Jones. Yeah, Aaron Jones, I'm not sure if is going to be active against Kansas City. This is one that we're obviously monitoring right now. Aaron Jones is officially questionable. He did miss last week's injury. He was out of practice on Wednesday. That is the most recent report that I have. So Aaron Jones, I don't expect to play. It is not official. He is just questionable at this point. Been missing a Wednesday practice after the Packers played on Thursday. That's concerning. This is probably a multi-week injury for Aaron Jones. So I'm not excited about Jones. And then Higgins, yeah, he's another player that has missed multiple weeks with his injury. So Jones and Higgins probably not going to play. Achan is more likely to play. If Achan is active, I would start him over JSN or Downs, but I would start Downs over JSN. That's just how I have it. All right. Serendipity Trick Shots asks, this might be dumb, but are there any kicker sleepers rest of season over Aubrey, or is he good? So the interesting thing about the kicker is that you want an offense that's good, but not great. Like, it's good enough to get into scoring position, good enough to put in some drives, good enough to get close enough to kicking a field goal, but the offense just sputters out. This was clear a couple years ago with Minnesota Vikings, So Aubrey definitely is near the top in the kicker rankings. We're looking at Brandon McManus. That could be interesting. I have McManus at 3 right now this week. I've got Matt Gay at 7, Jake Moody at 6. The Moody one might be interesting if San Francisco is sputtering against a tough Philadelphia defense. This is in Philly once again. So it may be looking like a Jake Moody, Jason Sanders. That is probably going to be a really high scoring game. So even if Tua doesn't, score a ton of points, that's what I'm thinking. Okay. Lex, plant some trees. I'm 1-11. Congratulations, Lex. Great job crushing it. This is awesome. 11-1. Phenomenal. Writing yourself a ticket to the playoffs. Do I drop Justin Tucker for Let's Groupie or Gay, or keep him and take the 0? So I have him for the playoffs. So we've got Lutz. Lutz is my kicker 12. Groupie is my kicker 10 for this week, and Gay is at 7. Now, the thing that I like about Tucker is Baltimore kind of fits that mold of good offense, sometimes struggles to score touchdowns, but can move down the field, may occasionally sputter, especially with Mark Andrews out. If you're projected to win and it doesn't really matter, I'd rather just hold on to Justin Tucker. Like if it doesn't matter. What matters is that you probably want to have the best kicker in the NFL or one of the best kickers in the NFL on your team. So that's how I would approach it, Lex, is just keep Justin Tucker unless you absolutely need the points. And this is something that you can move into later on, probably. It depends on the league and the league settings and everything. But if you find out, that you need a certain amount of points by the time we get to the 4:30 games and you're projected to lose by any amount, you don't want to be taking the L if you can help it. But if it matters to seeding, if it doesn't matter to seeding and you're punching your ticket no matter what to a bye week, just keep yourself some Justin Tucker. Also, if Higgins plays, am I starting him over Downs or Aaron Jones or Achan? Yeah, no, we're starting Achan. There we go. Serendipity Trick Shots. Okay, what do you think is a fair trade target if I'm offering Fields? I have Dak and Kyler already. So the interesting thing about Fields is that he offers this elite upside quarterback 1 overall potential. I mean, he didn't get his 100 rushing yards like he did 2 weeks ago, but Justin Fields is a player that you can get probably a running back 2 for. You could probably get a Najee Harris. You'd probably get a Ramondre Stevenson. You'd probably get a Brian Robinson. Maybe a James Conner. Like that type of tier of running back, you're thinking that you can pull away at this point. If we're talking wide receivers, probably a back end wide receiver 2. I mean, could Fields get Cortland Sutton? Fields get Nico Collins? Could Fields get Rashee Rice? Could Fields get a buy low of Garrett Wilson? Possibly. That's what I'm thinking. Is those are probably the targets that you can get for Justin Fields straight up. A-game Grizzo. Who do you like more out of Tucker Kraft and Tanner Hudson? Woof. Yeah, we're going with Tucker Kraft right now. He caught the touchdown. I was one of the highest rankers on Tucker Kraft this past week. He's right now my tight end 19 on the week, assuming Luke Musgrave does not play. Remember, Luke Musgrave has a lacerated kidney and had to be hospitalized. So Tucker Kraft now jumps into the top 24 of tight ends. Tanner Hudson, on the other hand, we can't trust that Bengals offense. At least the Packers have the potential to get into shootouts the rest of the season. Unfortunately, I don't think the same can be said for the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's how I would be approaching it week by week here, A-game Grizzo. All right, make sure you guys are throwing your comments in the chat. This is what tonight is all about. Answering your questions, giving you the best advice in the industry. That's what it's all about, guys. I'm here. My name is Bradley. You can follow me on Twitter at FFStaller. If you like the content and you find this helpful, smash that red subscribe button, bringing you great content all throughout the season. And then throughout the offseason, I've got some even bigger plans for the content that will be sustaining for your fantasy football life during the offseason. So make sure you guys are putting your comments in the chat. Make sure you are smashing that subscribe button and saying hi. Serendipity trick shots. Who's the worst rest of season? Nakua, Evans, Pittman. Also, is a trade with Herbert and one of those guys good for Hurts? Yeah, if you can do any of those a trade for any of those to get Hurts, yes. The access of ceiling for Hurts is massive. We just saw a 40-point week from Jalen Hurts because of overtime, 5 touchdowns, only 200 passing yards. But the ceiling for Hurts is so much higher than it is for Herbert that paying one of those players plus Herbert to increase to Hurts, this is the way. This is the way to win. You give yourself a chance to access massive ceilings because Nakua, Evans, and Pittman can all access pretty much the same type of ceiling. And they all have scary floors, like all of them do. That's just how all wide receivers are. The dirty little secret is that most wide receivers bust week to week. And by bust, I mean score fewer than 12.5 points in half PPR. Because that seems to be about the number that is able to get your players into, get your team into a good position to win games. Like if your worst players are scoring 12.5 points and half point, you're doing great. So the reality is these wide receivers bust about 50 to 60% of the time. And that's probably a wide receiver 2. If it's a wide receiver 3, probably busting 70% of the time. So for these players who are like high-end wide receiver 2s, low-end wide receiver 1s, the reality is they're probably closer to that 50%, but it's 50-50. It's a coin flip, right? We've seen bust games from Mike Evans. Even when he scores a touchdown, Mike Evans may not get the targets and may not get the yards that we want. Like I don't know if this is an official stat, but I'm sure someone can look it up. Mike Evans probably leads the all-time record for most 1-yard receiving scores. He's a goal line wide receiver. And so there are reasons why each of those wide receivers would bust. And we've seen massive ceilings from Nakua. We've seen it from Evans. Evans was the wide receiver 1 this past week. And then same thing with Michael Pittman. Pittman's probably the most consistent recently of these players, but they're all in that similar tier that, if you look at wide receivers, they're probably going to finish, in the top 24 or so. Maybe it's a spike week, maybe it's a bust week, but to trade Herbert to get the access of ceiling for Jalen Hurts is so much higher. So, yes, definitely make a trade for Jalen Hurts if you can. He's going to give you quarterback 5 or better every single week. All right, Nino Pena. Need to sit 1 this week based off matchups. Rashad, Gibbs, Warren, Bijan Robinson. You got to sit 1 this week, and that 1 is Jalen Warren. I have Jahmyr Gibbs at running back 5 this week. I have Bijan at running back 6 and Rashad White at running back 7, whereas Warren goes down to running back 14. So these are all very good. But there's clearly a tier break between Rashad, Gibbs, and Bijan until you get to Warren. That's how I would approach it. So I'd probably bench Warren of those. WKD1, which 3 should I start? Warren, Singletary, Moss, or Kyron Williams? You're starting Kyron Williams. You're starting Zach Moss. I have Williams at running back 10 and Moss at running back 12 this week. Singletary, I have at 18. Warren, I have at 14. So I do have Warren over Singletary. Singletary and Pierce split carries this past week in the game against Jacksonville. And the Houston Texans were trying to play catch up. It was a fun game, but the running game was mostly abandoned for the Houston Texans, which is why Singletary falls below Warren, Moss, or Kyron Williams. We've seen the sensitivity and the tendency for this Houston offense to go to pass heavy very quickly. So I would go with Warren, Moss, and Kyron Williams are the 3 sit Singletary. What's wrong with Chris Godwin? Scott Kemet, shout out to you. Asking a good question. What is wrong with Chris Godwin? Well, the first thing is that he's playing next to Mike Evans. I think that's a big issue. And Godwin is not built like Mike Evans. He's not as big. He's not as tall. His skill set is not downfield big time plays, the same as Mike Evans. He does get a lot of targets. In fact, every single game this year, sans week 10 against Tennessee, Chris Godwin has at least 5 targets. In that week, he had 4. He went 4 for 54. Problem is that when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get into the red zone, who is the first read? It's Mike Evans. Who can also score touchdowns? Rashad White, Cade Otton. Right now, Chris Godwin has 1 touchdown, and that was week 8 against the Buffalo Bills. Mike Evans, on the other hand, as I said, has been an absolute monster around the goal line. 9 touchdowns for Mike Evans this year, 850 receiving yards. The yards per reception is pretty similar between Godwin and Mike Evans. Actually, not as similar as I thought they were. But Godwin right now is playing almost 50% of his snaps in the slot, whereas Evans getting that downfield look, he's 75% out wide and only about 25% in the slot. So with a player who's bigger, stronger, better at high pointing, better at converting goal line plays into touchdowns, Mike Evans is the look for these high leverage. So he gets downfield looks and he gets end zone, red zone looks. So that's why Mike Evans is playing so much better than Godwin, is because of the type of play. And we've got Baker Mayfield, who is willing to throw it into those spaces. You have to remember, Tom Brady really liked to dump off to Fournette and dump off to Rashad White and hit the middle of the field with Gronk and hit the middle of the field with Chris Godwin. But Mike Evans, he struggled the last couple of years. He had a couple big games when Brady was able to, get a few more seconds to throw and throw the ball down the field. That is Evans' skill set. But Baker Mayfield can do it more consistently throwing the ball down the field. So Evans, that's the reason why Godwin is not performing, is because Baker Mayfield just fits Mike Evans' game a lot better. Perry Ning, should I try Fields and Kamara for Kamara or Stevenson? I mean, you can try. Stevenson is probably going to be fine. I have him at running back 15 this week. That's okay. Kamara, I have it running back 3. If you can get Kamara, right? That's the move, is to get Kamara. But there's a clear multi-tier break between Kamara and Stevenson. If I'm trying to make a trade, Kamara gets Detroit. And yes, Detroit has been pretty tough on the ground. But Kamara, yeah, he's been. This is wild. This is Kamara's running back finishes in half point: 12, 7, 12, 2, 4, 22, 14, and 14. Yeah, he's not giving you anything less than running back 14, except once this year. And we've seen 2 top 5 weeks of the games that Kamara's played. So the ceiling is absolutely there for Kamara. The floor is extraordinarily high. So if you can get Kamara, you most certainly should. All right, make sure you guys are smashing that subscribe button, putting your comments in the chat. My name is Bradley. If you're new, I appreciate all of you. This has been a lot of fun answering your questions so far. I'm here to do my best, give you some of the best advice in the industry. Drop your comments, drop your questions in the chat. I'm here to answer them for about another half hour. We'll see what we can do. I'm excited to be bringing you some of the best content in the industry. And if you want to support the channel as well, you can throw me some stars. You can throw me some bucks. You can see in the chat, support the channel there. You can also go to bestbellfantasy.com. And if you have more questions that I can't answer, you can go there, check out my rankings. I have those updated pretty regularly throughout the week. And of course, you can go to the Did It app, right, on iOS. And the first call with me is free. So make sure you guys are checking that out. You can send me a message, say, hey, Bradley, when can we touch base? Are you free soon? And we can totally do that. You can share your screen. You can let me know. I give some of the best advice in the industry. So that's how we're handling it right now. I've got a 4.81 rating, and the only one that didn't rate me a 5 is because the call dropped, and it wasn't my fault. It was whatever. Anyways, but over a 4.8 rating on Did It out of 5. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Download it. As I said, the first call is free. We've got some other experts in the industry as well on Did It if I'm not available at that point. So make sure you guys are checking it out there. Really appreciate all your support, and look forward to getting to some more comments here. Vito, someone dropped God quarterback, Allen. Should I drop Downs for him if I can? So here's the thing, is that Godwin, I probably will have ranked higher than Downs. Just because, I think he's a better talent. I think the Bucs offense will get into some more shootouts. I trust Baker Mayfield a little bit more than Gardner Minshew. But yeah, this week I have Downs ahead of Godwin. I have Downs at 27. And if we look at some of Downs' game logs, he hasn't exceeded wide receiver 48 over the last 3 weeks. He's been dealing with some injuries. I know. But we've seen, top 18 week from Downs. We've seen for 3 a week when he went for 125 and a touchdown against teams. Wild stuff. It was a broken play though, so we don't want to like get too carried away. He's probably more of like wide receiver 36. I think I'm a little too high on Josh Downs. So this is actually a mid podcast change. We're going to move him below Chris Godwin at this point. Godwin, on the other hand, his game logs have been also pretty unimpressive over the last 4 weeks without the single, massive spike week. He had a 3-game streak where he was wide receiver 9, 28, 26, and then followed that up with a 4th game of wide receiver 14. But Chris Godwin, as I said, Mike Evans is the play in this Tampa Bay offense because Baker Mayfield is willing to just throw the ball down the field. Like Evans has 9 touchdowns in the season. He's exceeded 140 receiving yards on 2 different occasions. And those are in games where he had 6 catches each. So the yards per reception is massive. So should I drop Downs for Godwin? Like I just like Godwin more, but they're in a similar tier. So that's your call, but I would lean Godwin. I'd lean Godwin. Would you trade Thielen? Chaka. Would you trade Thielen, Sutton, and Hall? Ooh. Okay. For Javonte. Wow. That's a lot. For Chase, Adams, and Jacobs, PPR. I like Jacobs in a similar tier with Hall. Maybe Jacobs, similar tier as Hall. Chase, definitely above Thielen or Sutton. And then Jacobs, Adams over Thielen, Sutton as well. So we've got 2 wide receivers that are better. We got Jacobs, who is better, and then you just have to throw in Javonte. If you've got the waivers and the bench that it's okay to consolidate, I'm okay with this move to try to get Chase, Adams, and Jacobs. That's fine. I'm okay with that. This is one that you can make a move for depending on your depth. I wouldn't do it in a consolidating move if you're in like a 16 or 32 team league. I think that it's just too many flex spots that you'd probably have to fill in with mediocre players. So that's how I'd handle that, Chaka. Okay. Cool beans. Other running backs are Kamara and Kyron. Yeah, I think you're in good shape. I like that. I like that trade for you. Getting Chase, Adams, and Jacobs. All right, y'all. This has been great. I've answered questions for about the last half hour or so. This has been a lot of fun answering and giving you some fantasy football advice, some stardom situms for week 13. Today's Wednesday, November 29th, and we've got Thursday games tomorrow, the Seattle versus Dallas Cowboys game. This is again a Thursday night game that Dallas is playing on. Jerry Jones loves his Thursday nights. Can we just say that? Jerry Jones loves his Thursday nights. Okay, cool. Well, I think that's it for right now. I appreciate all of you jumping in, asking your questions, going through your stardom situms. Oh, Perry's asking about Devontae rest of season. Tried packaging him in Fields for Diggs and X. I don't know who X is, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I think Devontae is going to be fine rest of season. O'Connell is hyper targeting him. We've seen Devontae used around the goal line or around the end zone packages. Should you try packaging him in Fields for Diggs? So Diggs over Devontae. So that's the move. Even though Diggs, hasn't had the spike weeks that we'd hoped he had over the past couple weeks. Devontae and Fields to get Diggs and then something else. Maybe a Freiermuth if you need a tight end or some other play. That's how I would try to do it. I think Devontae is going to be just fine, though. All right, everybody. This has been great. Until next time, good luck in the fantasy football streets for week number 13.
I embrace all this risk, I'm insane. Talking about that best bill, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still. Best bill, I'm the best till into the next world. Guess I got next still.